For far too long in this country, qualifications and wisdom and everything were never things that were, or ideas or characteristics that were automatically ascribed to someone who was not white, and certainly someone who was not white and male. The black woman who's going to be on the bench will probably be more impressive, have more qualifications, be more brilliant than the folks who have come in before her, precisely because she has had to be all those things, because people used her race to downgrade and belittle and not think much of her simply because she is black.
Supreme racism. Washington Post columnist and MSDNC host Jonathan Capehart claims Biden's pick for the Supreme Court will be more brilliant and qualified than anyone who came before, because she had to overcome all the racism. And it turns out that Biden knows a thing or two when it comes to playing the race card, especially when it comes to court appointments.
I don't think Republicans should really focus on this. What they really ought to focus on is having full hearts. My heart is full that an African-American woman is going to be on the Supreme Court, because there's not been anybody in Washington over the last 36 years who's fought harder against putting African-Americans and Hispanics on the bench than Joe Biden. You look what he did to Clarence Thomas. He used the Jim Crow filibuster, their words, not mine, against Janice Rogers Brown and Priscilla Owen and Miguel Estrada. Joe Biden has an atrocious record, and I think our hearts ought to be full that an African-American female can finally get past Joe Biden's record. After 36 years, he's finally found religion on this issue. So we ought to question them vigorously, look at their qualifications, look at their experience, and that's perfectly fine. But we ought to rejoice that Joe Biden's decided to stop trying to prevent minorities from making high federal office in this country.
This insight into Biden's questionable past comes as an overwhelming number of Americans disagree with his method for picking a new justice. According to a new ABC News Ipsos poll, 76% of Americans believe Joe Biden should consider all possible nominees. Only 23% believe he should consider only nominees who are black women, as he has pledged to do. Either way, we can rest assured Biden's nominee for the Supreme Court will be an ultra-progressive liberal. Joining us now with her analysis on Biden's potential court pick, Director of Membership Development at Project 21, Donna Jackson. Donna, when you think about the fact that we don't even know who this nomination is going to be, who's going to get the nomination, yet everybody's saying confirm her just because she's going to make history.
You know, that's the wrong approach to putting a Supreme Court justice on the bench. Listen, we need to understand why the media is so adamant about discussing this. This is all about trying to induce rage. It's trying to get the same vitriol and anger we saw during the Black Lives Matter protests and the George Floyd protests in order for them to be able to, win during the midterms. It has nothing to do with her race. But it actually degrades individuals when you think that the only reason why a person could qualify to be on the bench or any position in this country is because of the color of their skin. It actually degrades them, because what happens is that people will say the only reason why they got picked is because of their race. And that is so wrong. It should be qualifications. If you're looking for the best qualified individual, then that will it will include all races. We've only had, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
We've only had 17 people served in the Supreme Court since its inception in 1790. We want to make sure that we have the best individual on the bench, because it's such an important position that it could shape the fabric of our very nation and this Constitution.
That's the debate they don't want us to have, to talk about the qualifications. Instead, if anybody questions whoever this person is, they're going to be called a racist or a sexist, because she and the people around her will claim and use that as Kamala Harris has done. Kamala Harris is not likable, and yet every time she's attacked, every time her staffers leave and there's rumors in the press, it's, oh, people don't like her because they're sexist, because they're racist.
Listen, I I reached the level of vice president. I was deputy controller. And I'm going to tell you this. If someone would have offered me a position because I was the best qualified African American for the position, I would have turned it down. I wanted to be based on my merit because this is about getting the job done. This is about a person that's competent and that's very qualified. Now, being Black, being a female has nothing to do with it. It's about being able to do the job that you're called to do. And the fact that they put so much emphasis on race is wrong. Their bigotry, it shows their bigotry because they actually have in their minds that if we don't lower expectations for African Americans, we can't qualify. We can't compete against white Americans, against white males. What difference does it make what color I am? It's about my competency. And they're taking that away from anyone that gets that position because they put so much emphasis on the color of their skin.
Even when you look back at why Biden made this promise to begin with, it was during the debates when he was losing in the primaries. He was worried about his support among minorities, and we all hear the story, how people told him, you know, you should really do this, how the one congressman who takes all the credit for him getting in power, getting elected, of course we can go down the fraud debate too, but during the primaries, the only reason Biden made that promise was because he wanted to gain momentum among minorities. This was not about actually doing something. This was about him trying to gain power. This was all about him.
It's always about him. But, you know, I think that shows how little faith they have in African Americans, how their bigotry for African Americans is so widespread. Because they think that the only way we make a decision is by an image of an individual who looks like us. I've never woken up in the morning and said, you know, let me see how many African Americans are out there before I make this choice. That's the worst approach. And you can see it now in the support by minorities in the Latino and Black communities right now, because his approval numbers are at the lowest of any Democratic politician, because it's about the policies and what you do to help the community, not about giving us a role model.
Exactly, and that's, again, the timing of this announcement. His poll numbers are doing terrible. He comes out with this. It's always been about pandering. It's never been about delivering real results, as we saw with President Trump, where we actually had the lowest unemployment numbers, the highest employment numbers. When you look at all the reforms President Trump got done, that's why minority support in the Republican Party is growing. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your voice in this, because it's so sad to think that this is the way we're going to frame this, that we can't actually debate a person's qualifications without it turning into calling each other ists and all the kinds of names in the book. But I'm sure we're going to be seeing you again soon. Thank you for your voice and for your courage out there.
Thank you so much for having me.